The snowstorm came fast. Jack didn't expect it. One moment, the sky was clear. The next, it turned white. Winds screamed outside his tent like angry ghosts. The temperature dropped so fast, even his heater blinked for a second. He was stuck in a lonely part of the alien planet known as RHO-7. The others had left days ago, but Jack stayed behind to finish a survey. Now he was alone in the storm, or so he thought. Jack sat inside his tent. Sipping hot water from a silver mug, he checked the scanner. Nothing nearby, just cold wind and snow. But then something beeped. A red blip appeared on the screen. Just outside the camp, he stared at it, confused. No one should be out there. No human, no drone, nothing. He grabbed his coat, boots, and a thermal blanket. The wind hit him like a punch. As soon as he stepped outside, he could barely see a few meters ahead, but he followed the scanner's signal. His boots crunched on thick snow, each step harder than the last. Then he saw it, a shape, small, lying still. He rushed over and dropped to his knees. It was a girl, not human. She had smooth bluish skin and thin limbs, and her eyes were closed. Her clothes were torn, her hands shaking. Without thinking, Jack wrapped the blanket around her and lifted her up. She was light, too light, like a feather. He hurried back to the tent as fast as he could, the storm howling behind him like it wanted her back. Inside the tent, Jack turned the heater to full power. He placed her on his sleeping mat, wrapping her tighter. He checked her pulse, weak but steady. Her face twitched and her lips moved, like she was trying to speak. Jack opened a warm pack and placed it near her hands. Slowly, the color in her skin began to change, from pale blue to a deeper shade. She was alive, but just barely. Jack sat beside her, watching her breathe. She looked young, maybe his age or younger. Where had she come from? Why was she alone in a storm like this? There were no other settlements nearby, no alien villages, no research teams, just ice mountains and the wind. After an hour, her eyes opened. They were big, silver, and full of fear. She tried to sit up, but winced in pain. Jack held up his hands, showing he meant no harm. "Easy," he said. "You're safe now." She looked around the tent, breathing fast, her fingers trembling. Then she spoke, her voice soft but clear. Where am I?" "You're in my tent, Jack." "Said I found you outside in the snow." She blinked, confused. "You brought me here?" "Yes," he nodded. "You would have died out there." She sat up slowly, pulling the blanket close. Her eyes watched him carefully, as if she didn't trust him yet. Jack understood. They were strangers, from different worlds. Still, he offered her some warm water. She hesitated, then took it with both hands, sipping slowly. "Thank you," she said, her voice shaking. "I didn't think anyone would come." Jack raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean? Why were you out there?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at the flap of the tent, like she was expecting someone or something to come through it. Her hands gripped the blanket tighter, and her lips pressed into a line. "I ran," she whispered. "They were going to take me back." "Who?" Jack asked. "Take you back where?" Again silence. Then she looked him in the eyes, and what he saw there wasn't just fear. It was something else, something deeper, hurt, maybe, or anger. "You shouldn't have helped me," she said. "Now they'll come for you too." Jack frowned. "Who will come?" She didn't answer. Instead, she leaned back and closed her eyes, shivering again. Jack stood up and checked the scanner. Still no signs outside, just wind and snow. But now, he wasn't sure the scanner could be trusted, not if whatever was chasing her didn't want to be found. He looked at her again, sleeping now, or pretending to. She wasn't just some lost girl. She was running from something, maybe even something dangerous, and now, that danger might be heading straight to him. Outside, the wind howled louder, like it was warning him, or maybe welcoming something in. Asterisk, the fire inside the tent crackled softly. Outside, the storm still roared, but it no longer mattered. Jack was awake, but he didn't move. Something felt wrong. Not the kind of wrong you could see, but the kind your gut whispered about a quiet tension, like the air was holding its breath. He turned his head slowly. The alien girl was no longer lying down. She stood near the corner of the tent, one hand hovering over his backpack. Her other hand glowed faintly, blue, lighting up her face in strange patterns. She wasn't shivering anymore. She looked calm. To calm? What are you doing? Jack asked softly. She didn't turn to look at him. I was looking for something, she said. Something that might still help me. Jack sat up, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Help you do what? Stay free, she said. And stay alive. Now she turned, her silver eyes bright in the low light. I need tools, she continued. Something that can cut deep. Jack's heartbeat picked up. Cut what? She walked over and sat down cross-legged across from him, still wrapped in the blanket. Slowly, she pulled her sleeve down. Jack leaned forward and then froze. There was a line along her upper arm, glowing faintly under her skin, but it wasn't a scar. It was moving, just slightly, pulsing like it had a rhythm. It looked alive. What is that? He asked. They put it inside me, she said, not looking at him. Tracker. Maybe more than that. Jack stared, trying to stay calm. Who are they? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into the side of her torn suit and pulled out a small chip. It was burned, half melted. This was my ID, she said. Till I destroyed it. Jack leaned back, mind racing. Were you a prisoner? Something like that, she whispered. I was supposed to follow orders, smile, obey. She looked at the glow in her arm. But I escaped before they finished. Jack stood up and started pacing. You're telling me someone experimented on you? On this planet? Yes, she said. And they're still here. Jack stared at her. Why come to my tent? I didn't come to you, she said softly. I was trying to die in the snow. Quietly, but then you saw me. Jack didn't speak for a long moment. He looked at the gear in the tent, food packs, warmers, medical kits, but nothing advanced enough to remove whatever that thing in her arm was. She followed his gaze and said, There's a lab north of here. He nodded. Heard rumors, he said. Abandoned alien site. No one goes near it. I used to live there, she said, and maybe there's still something inside that can help me finish what I started. Suddenly, the tent lights flickered. They both turned toward the scanner. A new signal flashed, just for a second, then vanished. Jack moved toward it, tapping the screen. Nothing. Just like before the girl appeared. I told you, she said, her voice sharp. They're looking for me? Jack grabbed his coat. We're leaving in the morning, he said, before they find this place. The girl nodded. But her eyes stayed fixed on the scanner, even after the screen went dark again. Like she knew the machine wouldn't warn them in time. Later that night, Jack sat with his rifle resting on his knees, watching the tent entrance. The girl slept again, her breathing soft. But her hand never stopped glowing. Jack didn't trust her completely, not yet. But she hadn't lied, not once. And whatever had been done to her, she didn't deserve it. Suddenly something tapped the side of the tent once. Then again Jack aimed his rifle, holding his breath. Silence. Then he heard it, a voice, not loud, not human, just outside the tent. Return the asset. It whispered, return the asset. Jack didn't move, didn't blink. He looked at the girl, still asleep, or pretending to be. The voice repeated, like a machine stuck in a loop. Return the asset, then nothing. The storm howled again, covering the sound completely. Jack lowered the rifle slowly, hands shaking. She was right. They were already here. The snow had stopped falling. The world outside the tent was silent. Too silent. Jack stepped out at first light. Rifle in hand, the air was heavy, thick with something unseen. No tracks, no movement, but he could feel it. They were still. Out there, watching, back inside, the alien girl was already awake. She sat near the heater, staring at the glowing line on her arm. Her face was pale, lips pressed tight. She didn't look scared this time. She looked angry. Does it hurt? Jack asked. She looked up, surprised he noticed. Only when I think about it, she said, but it's always there. Jack sat down across from her. Tell me what it really is, he said. What it's doing to you. The girl was quiet for a moment, Then, without a word, she rolled up her sleeve again. Jack leaned closer. This time, he saw something new. Not just a glowing line. The skin around it was changing. Small cracks were forming, like veins of light under glass. This wasn't just a tracker, she said softly. It was meant to grow. Jack echoed. Into what? She looked him straight in the eye. Into control. She stood up, holding out her arm like it didn't belong to her. They designed it to spread slowly. Take over my nervous system. Make me easier to command, they said I would feel. No pain, she scoffed. They lied. Jack clenched his fists. Who did this to you? She turned away, her voice hollow. People who smile while they build monsters. They called it research. Jack stood up too, heart pounding. You're not a monster, he said. You're still fighting it. For now, she said, but the mark. It doesn't sleep. Suddenly, she froze. A sharp, electric jolt ran through her arm, and she gasped, falling to her knees. Jack rushed to her side, catching her before she hit the floor. Her eyes were glowing now, not just silver, but filled with light. Her voice came out strange, layered, like two people speaking at once. Target acquired. She whispered, coordinates locked. Jack stared in horror. The mark was using her like a signal beacon, calling something to them. He grabbed a roll of foil mesh from his supplies and quickly wrapped it around her arm. The glow dimmed. The strange voice faded. She blinked hard, then looked at him, afraid. I didn't do that, she whispered. It did. Jack helped her sit up again. We have to move now, he said. Whatever it just contacted, it's coming. She nodded weakly. There's only one place that might help, she said, the lab. Jack packed quickly, loading food, warmers, tools, and his best weapons. He helped the girl into a thick coat and wrapped another blanket around her shoulders. As they stepped outside, the landscape looked peaceful, but they both knew better. This wasn't peace. This was the silence before something terrible arrived. They began walking north, toward the old research site she spoke about. It was a long hike through frozen forest and rocky slopes. Jack walked ahead, his rifle ready. The girl followed closely, sometimes stumbling. The glow from under her sleeve pulsed with every step, each pulse brighter than the last. They didn't talk much on the way. The cold was too harsh, and the tension too heavy. But just before sundown, Jack saw something up ahead, a fence, broken and bent, buried halfway in snow. Behind it, the remains of a facility, tall and wide, windows shattered, doors half torn open. We're here, she said quietly. Where they made me, Jack. Looked at the building. It didn't look like a lab. It looked like a prison. He helped her climb over the fence, and together they made their way to the entrance. The place smelled like rust and dust, untouched for years, yet something inside felt alive, as if it was waiting inside. Flickering lights still blinked above broken doorways. Machines lined the walls, humming softly even after all this time. The girl stopped near a glass panel. Wiping the dust away, a chair sat in the center of the room, a strange one, with cables and clamps. I remember this, she said. This is where it started. Jack stared at the chair, then at her. Can it be reversed? She looked down at her glowing arm, the cracks now reaching her wrist. I don't know, she said. But if we don't try, I'll become theirs again. Jack stepped forward, placing a hand on her shoulder. Then we try. Suddenly, the building lights turned red. A voice echoed through the halls, robotic and cold. Unauthorized subject detected. Containment protocol activated. Jack raised his rifle, eyes scanning the dark hall. He turned to her. Is it the mark again? She shook her head slowly. No, she said, her voice trembling this time. It's not the mark. Asterisk red lights flashed inside the ruined lab. The sound of metal doors unlocking echoed like thunder through the halls. But Jack hadn't touched anything, and the girl hadn't even stepped into the main room yet. Something, or someone had triggered the system from somewhere deeper inside. The voice returned, cold and sharp. Containment breach detected. Claim asset. Jack spun around, pointing his rifle down the long hallway. Empty for now. The alien girl backed away from the door, eyes wide with fear. No one should be alive in here. She whispered, It was abandoned. Maybe not, Jack muttered. Or maybe it never really shut down. Suddenly, a panel slid open near the ceiling, and a small floating drone dropped out. It scanned the girl instantly, a red beam, passing over her body. Then it turned to Jack, mechanical arms twitching. Before it could speak, Jack shot it out of the air, sparks flying. The girl flinched, her glowing arm pulsing again. "We have to go deeper," she said quickly. "Before more come deeper?" Jack asked. "Into the place that just tried to lock us in." "It's the only way," she said. "The core chamber is still sealed. I saw it once. Years ago. If I'm going to stop this thing inside me, I need what's down there." Jack didn't argue, and she was right. The mark was spreading. Faster now. Thin lines of light were creeping up her neck, curling toward her face. If they didn't act fast, she'd lose control, and Jack would lose her. They moved quickly. Down rusted metal stairs and through broken glass doors. The deeper they went, the colder it got. Not from the weather, from something else. A dead chill that came from machines left running far too long. They passed a row of tanks, big, glass tubes filled with frozen fluid. Some were empty, but others weren't. Jack looked closer and saw shadows inside, shapes too big to be human. Their eyes were closed, but Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't really asleep. What were they doing here? "Oh," Jack asked. The girl stopped and looked back. "Testing," she said. "Mixing DNA, creating soldiers, weapons." "I was one of the mistakes." Jack shook his head. "You're not a mistake," she didn't reply, but her eyes softened just a little. Then she pointed ahead. "That door, the core is behind it," was a heavy blast door, sealed with a code panel and strange alien symbols. Before Jack could even ask what to do, the girl stepped forward and placed her glowing hand against the panel. The lights blinked, then turned green. The door hissed open slowly, revealing a massive room filled with blue light. Inside, a giant machine stood in the center, wires hanging like vines, humming with quiet power. "This is it," she whispered. Where they connected minds and machines. Jack looked around. Screens on the walls showed data, memories, pieces of lives stolen and recorded. One screen showed the girl younger, scared, strapped to a chair. Another showed her screaming as the mark was burned into her skin. Jack stepped in front of her, blocking her view. "You don't have to watch that." She nodded, fighting tears. "I remember enough." The machine suddenly powered up. A voice spoke again, but this time it was different. Not cold, not robotic. It was hers. "A recording from the past. If you're hearing this," it said. "Then I failed. To stay human?" the girl gasped. "That's me." Jack turned to her. "Did you leave yourself a message?" "Must have," she said. "Before I escaped. Before the mark took over." The recorded voice continued. "This machine can undo the link, but it will cost you. You may lose pieces of yourself, your memories, your strength, but you'll be free." Jack looked at her. "You don't have to do this," he said. "There has to be another way." She looked at him, her eyes now flickering with light from the mark. "If I don't," she said softly, "I won't be me much longer, and I don't want to become what they made me." Jack clenched his jaw, then nodded. "Then let's do it together." He helped her climb into the chair, strapping her in gently. She reached out and grabbed his hand. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not running away. I couldn't." Jack said, "You're not just some lost alien. You're someone worth saving." He activated the machine, and a pulse of energy shot through the room. The girl cried out, her body jerking as the mark lit up like fire. Sparks flew, wires burned, and alarms blared. Jack held on, refusing to let go. Outside in the dark halls of the lab, more drones woke up. More machines blinked to life. Something had noticed what they were doing, and it was coming. The scream didn't sound human. It came from the machine, but it was her voice. Stretched and broken, Jack stood frozen, hand still gripping hers. Light burst from her skin like wildfire, burning the cables that held her down. The entire chamber shook as sparks rained from the ceiling. He wanted to pull her out, to stop the pain, but her grip tightened. "Don't," she gasped. "I'm still here." Jack looked into her eyes. They weren't silver anymore. They were glowing white, like stars trapped behind glass. Her skin flickered between blue and pale gold. The mark was no longer just on her arm. It had spread across her chest, her face, her back, a map of light that pulsed with a strange rhythm. Then the voice returned, not from the speakers, but from her. A second voice layered over her own. Unit 47 has reached transformation threshold. Neural override in progress. No, she whispered. I won't let it. Jack stepped closer, fighting the heat pouring from the machine. You're not a number, he said. You're not Unit 47, you're you, she cried. Out again, and a shockwave exploded from the chair. Jack was thrown across the room, hitting the wall hard. He struggled to his feet. Coughing from the smoke, the machine was sparking wildly now, systems shutting down one by one. But the girl wasn't in the chair anymore. She floated above it, eyes closed, limbs limp, but surrounded by a soft glowing field. She looked like a ghost or a goddess made of light. Then her body fell back down gently. Hitting the ground without a sound, Jack rushed to her, dropping beside her in the smoke. Her eyes fluttered open, not glowing now, just silver again, tired and soft. She looked up at him, voice barely a whisper. Did it work? She asked. Jack held her hand, trembling. I don't know, he said. But you're alive, she smiled faintly. For now, suddenly, alarms screamed again. Real ones this time. A voice Jack hadn't heard before filled the chamber. Calm and male. Unauthorized access detected in core chamber. Security response en route. The girl pushed herself up. Groaning, they're coming, she said. The real ones, the ones who never left. Jack grabbed his rifle, checked the clip, and pulled her up. We're not done yet, he said. Can you move? She nodded weakly, her skin still glowing faintly in patches. They ran through the lab's lower corridors, past broken lights and shattered windows. Behind them, the sound of footsteps echoed, heavy, armored, not machines this time, but people. Whoever had built this place hadn't abandoned it after all. They had just waited in the dark. Jack led her into a service tunnel. Ducking under metal beams and crawling through dust, they stopped only once when the girl fell to her knees, coughing. Hard Jack turned and saw blood on her fingers, glowing like her veins. She wiped it quickly. But he saw the fear in her eyes. It's not gone, she said. It changed. But it's still inside me. Jack looked at her, heart heavy. Then we'll keep changing with it, he said. But we're getting out of here together. They reached the surface again, just as the sun began to rise. The snow reflected gold light across the hills, but the peaceful view was a lie, far behind them. Black smoke rose from the facility, and in that smoke, something moved, shapes, tall and slow, walking without sound, watching without eyes. The girl turned to look back, her expression unreadable. Jack stepped in front of her, blocking the view. We don't look back, he said. Not anymore, she smiled faintly. You sound like someone who's done this before. I haven't, he said. But I've decided one thing. What's that? She asked. He looked at her glowing arm, at the strange beauty of what she had become. I don't leave people behind. She took a deep breath, stood straighter. Then I won't leave myself behind either. They started walking, their shadows. Long across the snow, behind them, the lab slowly vanished into the mist. Whatever had happened down there wasn't finished, not yet. But she had taken the first step, and so had Jack. For the first time since he met her, she wasn't running. She was walking towards something, not away, something she could finally choose for herself. Asterisk, the snow didn't crunch under their feet anymore, it whispered, soft and quiet, like it was listening. Every step Jack and the girl took felt heavier than the last, not because of the cold, but because something was following them. Not close enough to see, but close enough to feel. Jack paused near a frozen ridge and looked back. There was nothing behind them, no movement, no sound, but the air felt wrong, like it was pressing down on his shoulders. Even the wind had gone silent. Too silent. They're near, she whispered without turning. Jack didn't ask how she knew. He'd learned to trust her instincts. By now, they weren't just guesses. They were warnings from whatever was still inside her. They pushed forward, heading toward the old satellite station in the hills. It was a dead place. No power, no signals. But it had shelter, and maybe answers as they reached the door. Jack used his last battery cell to power the lock. The door groaned open, the hallway beyond dark and cold. They stepped inside. Closing the world out behind them, the station was quiet, untouched for years. Dust floated in the air like frozen. Memories. The girl walked slowly, her eyes scanning the walls. Jack noticed her fingers trembling, not from fear, but from something building inside. She stopped suddenly, staring at a wall panel covered in handprints. Each print was small, like a child's, and each one glowed faintly in the dark. "This was one of the testing sites," she said, voice flat. "They brought us here first." Jack stepped closer. "How many of you were there?" 15, she said. Only 2 made it out. Jack didn't ask what happened to the rest. He already knew the answer by the way her voice cracked. Then, a sound, not loud but clear, a soft clicking from outside. Jack raised his rifle. Moving to the nearest window, what he saw made his skin crawl. 5 figures were standing in the snow, perfectly still. Each one wore dark armor, not like soldiers, but like shadows wrapped in steel. They had no helmets. Only smooth black faces that reflected nothing. One of them raised a hand, and the others began to move forward. "Slow and silent, they've come," the girl said, her voice shaking. "The real ones." Jack turned to her. "You know them?" "I don't have to," she whispered. "They're the ones who never speak. They send signals with thoughts, not words. They built the mark inside me." Jack backed away from the window, heart racing. "We can't fight that." He said, "Not like this." But the girl didn't move. She stood still, her eyes glowing again. Her breath shallow. "They're calling to me," she said, trying to take control. Jack stepped forward, gripping her shoulders. "Don't listen, you're not theirs anymore." She closed her eyes tightly. For a moment, her body shook, and Jack thought she might collapse. But then, something strange happened. The glow in her skin began to shift. Not brighter, but steadier. The mark wasn't attacking. It was responding to her, like it knew who was in charge now. She opened her eyes, fierce and clear. "Oh, they think I'm still one of them," she said. "Let's use that." Jack blinked. "What do?" "You mean?" "I'll go out there," she said, alone. "They won't attack me if they believe I'm under control." "That's insane," Jack said. "They'll see through it. They'll take you maybe," she said. "But I have to know why they're still after me before Jack could stop her." She turned and opened the station door. Cold air rushed in, and she stepped out into the snow. The 5 figures didn't move. They just watched her approach. Silent as statues, Jack watched from the window, rifle ready, heart pounding. The girl stopped a few feet away from them, her arms at her sides. Then one of the figures stepped forward, raised a hand and placed it on her head. Jack nearly fired, but then the figure pulled back, and something unbelievable happened. The girl spoke not with her voice, but through the air itself, her words vibrating through the metal walls of the station. "I know what you are," she said. "You made me. But I'm not yours anymore. You lost control the day I woke up with fear, and not obedience." The tallest figure stepped back, as if surprised. The others turned to it, waiting. The girl raised her hand, her palm glowing like fire. "I'm not your weapon," she said. "I'm your warning." And then she let out a blast of energy that knocked all 5 to their knees. The snow exploded around her, and the sky above turned pale blue with light. The figures didn't rise. They lay still, twitching, disconnected from whatever power had once moved them. Jack rushed out, grabbing her before she collapsed. She smiled weakly, eyes flickering with light and tears. "I'm not afraid anymore," she whispered. "Not of them, and not of who I am becoming." The snow was soft beneath her feet, but she couldn't feel it anymore. Not the cold. Not the pain. Not even the wind on her skin. She stood still in the silence, watching the sky begin to break open with morning light, but something inside her was fading. Something warm, something small, something human. Jack knelt beside one of the fallen figures, checking for signs of life. There were none. They weren't machines, not exactly, and not people either. They were something in between, like she was becoming. He turned to look at her. She was glowing again, but this time it wasn't wild or bright. It was soft, like the last light of a candle before it dies. Her breathing was slow, too slow, and her eyes had lost their shine. "You used too much," Jack said quietly, "didn't you?" She nodded, the power inside me. "It wasn't mine," she said. "It was always theirs. I just took control long enough to stop them." Jack stepped closer. "There has to be something we can do. We can find another lab, another machine." She shook her head gently. "No more machines," she whispered. "No more experiments." He watched her legs tremble, then she collapsed. And he caught her before she hit the snow. She felt lighter than before. As if parts of her were already slipping away, she looked up at him, and for the first time there was no glow in her eyes, just softness, just sadness, just her. "I didn't come to your tent just to survive," she said. "I came because I was cold inside. Not just from the storm, but from what they made me." Jack held her close, his coat wrapping around both of them. "You fought all of them," he said. "You chose to be free." She smiled faintly. "Freedom doesn't mean much. If you don't feel real, and I haven't felt real in a long time," he brushed her hair back gently. "You're real to me." Her lips trembled, and a tear slid down her cheek, not glowing, just wet and warm. "Do you know what I wanted most when I came into your tent?" she asked. "I didn't want rescue, or escape, or even safety. I just wanted to sit near someone and feel like I wasn't a thing." Jack felt his chest tighten. "You're not a thing," he said. "You're not a project, or a mistake. You're someone." She closed her eyes. "For a little while in that small space with you, I felt human again, and that was enough." Jack looked around the snow-covered hills, the broken satellite station behind them. Everything around them was silent now, the kind of silence that came after endings. But he wasn't ready to let go. Then he remembered something, a device he had kept hidden, even from himself, an old Earth relic from before he came to this planet. A healing core designed for injured soldiers. It wasn't made for aliens. But maybe, just maybe, it could work for someone who had chosen to be human again. He pulled it out of his pack, a glowing green cylinder no longer than his hand. She opened her eyes again as he held it up. "What's that?" she asked, her voice faint. "A gamble," he said, "and a promise." He pressed it gently against her chest. Where the last glow of the mark was still fading, the core clicked, then hummed. Not light spread out from its center, not harsh, not alien, but warm, soft, familiar, like sunlight through a window. On a quiet morning, her breath caught, her eyes fluttered, and slowly, the color returned to her face. The cracks in her skin sealed, the light in her veins calmed. And for the first time in days, she looked peaceful. Jack smiled, tears in his eyes. "You're not going anywhere," he said. "Not yet." She reached up and touched his face, and for the first time, her hand didn't glow. It was just a hand, soft and alive. "Thank you," she whispered, "for giving me more than warmth.
Oh.
For giving me back a piece of myself." They sat together in the snow as the sun rose. The wind returned, gentle now, as if it, too, had been waiting for this moment. No one came to stop them. No machines, no soldiers, no shadows. Just a boy and a girl, one human and one who had chosen to be.